Hey everybody, welcome back. It's another episode of Blacktop Banter. This is episode 66. So, like I always say, we're rolling right along. I know for a fact we're gonna get to 100 by the end of this year because I've made myself a goal of hitting 4 a month, and now we got some killer sponsors that are going to be kicking in. I'm really super excited to announce in July we get a new round of sponsorship, and we got some big names that are signed on for 6 months. So I owe it to them, and I owe it to all the listeners. And luckily, I got friends that help me with my debt, and to you guys, the listeners, and to our sponsors as well. And I got I'll say one of my very best friends on today. And I feel bad that's taken so long because we've talked about getting on the podcast for so long. And since then, yeah, I think you've got a following of your own right by now. Oh, that's funny. I guess I use a play on words there. So Daniel Wright, go ahead and introduce yourself. Everyone's got to know you, but there's got to be a few that probably don't cross over, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, we're working on the following, man. Marvin, I appreciate you having me on. Like you said, we've talked about it for a while, and it's something that's you've had to kind of pull me out of the shell of I guess get my head out of the sand and realize there's a world outside of what I do here in Charlotte. But yeah, I'm with Proline Parking Lot Maintenance. I've been the owner of the company for going on 6 years now, and we are out of Charlotte, North Carolina. So we specialize in the maintenance side of it. So the sealing, line striping, crack sealing, signs, all that. That's our specialty, and we've kind of started dabbling into the asphalt repairs and the concrete repairs this year. So just trying to keep the ball rolling.
So let's talk about real quick. We'll go into how you and I met and how we're friends and everything and how we've become really, really close. But first, I want to talk about kind of how we very first met when we were at MPE, and there was a dinner. I think it was probably the Seal Master dinner, and we all go up, right? And I know a few of these people from the groups, and I think I know them from a year before at 2017, but I believe this was 2018. We were in Cleveland, if I'm remembering this right. And Seal Master had a great dinner, great spread, like always. We all went up and got plates. While we were getting our food, Daniel was asking questions, right? Because we had Jim Panzenhagen was around us. I think Jason Mann was there. Warren Johnson was there. Nick Howell, I think, was with us too. And we were all sitting at, I think Chris Tammany was there too. So there was a huge table that we all sat at. But while we were in line getting food, Daniel started to ask questions. And then we sat down. We are all feeding our faces. Daniel really didn't touch anything on his damn plate because he was still asking all kinds of questions about everything. And finally I just gave up because you were asking Jim quite a bit, because the line striping is really how you got your foot in the door in the industry and got going first. But elaborate on that a little bit, because you're a man on a mission. I know that you have goals, you have missions. When we go into things, you definitely want to be efficient with your time and make sure that you're getting the value out of your investment of time, as it is a commodity in this world. Talk about that trip and that moment as well. And were you getting what you had planned for? Was that your plan going in, or how did that work?
Yeah, so that expo in 2018 up in Cleveland was the first one that I ever went to. So I got into the business in August of 2017, just doing line striping. I bought the business existing from another fireman that I worked with. He started as a side job. He was getting out of it because he was getting promoted, didn't have time for it anymore. So he sold it to me. I had no idea. He told me it was a parking lot maintenance company, and I asked him if, like, what do you do, go pick up trash, or what do you do? I don't know.
Yeah.
So we got into that, and then I really enjoyed what I was doing at the end of 2017. So then I looked up, like, I was just looking anywhere I could to learn about the industry. So that's what led me to NPE in Cleveland. And when I got there, I'll be honest with you, man, like I was terrified to go up there. I was even telling Kelsey, my wife, before I left, I was like, why am I doing this? Like, I don't know anybody there. I don't know what I'm even going for. Hell, I barely even have the money to go. And, but I'm going to go figure it out. So fast forward to that dinner, like you said, and it was just, you put the dinner together through the Facebook groups that you started, and I'm just kind of
Right.
organize it through that.
Right.
So I was like, well, I've talked to these guys online a little bit, so I guess I'm just going to get an opportunity to do it in person. And you hit the nail on the head when you said I was just asking questions. It's what I've always been known for, is
Yep.
just digging for answers. Respectfully, obviously, like you said, time is a commodity that, we can't get back.
Yep.
So I make sure that all the questions that I ask are intentional. And then once I get answers to them, I make sure to take action after someone's invested that time into me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And since then, like you're still that way. I know you are, because we go places together, and we've stayed together while we went to conferences and things. And before we even get out the door, you're like, this is what we really need to focus on. This is what I'm going to try to focus on today. This is what we got to bring in. And then we'll go to these things, and then we'll come out of them, and you're like, you'll ask me like, what did you pull out of that? Like, I want to know kind of your perspective too. Then we'll
yeah,
go over your perspective and everything. And honestly, I would not do that. I would probably just be like, whoa, dude, that was cool. And there was a few things that stuck out in my brain, and I'll remember them down the line. But to review it and make sure with intention that I'm getting my value out of it, I don't do that all that well with everything. And I know you do. So that's, you and I communicate a lot, because we're in the same circle, right?
yeah,
We also are in different circles. So we
yep,
make sure to bring a lot. We also have different interests, different people we look up to. We're in complete different parts of the world, but we do have a general pulse on everything. I think you and I do both. So we do communicate a lot in order to keep that going. It's a beautiful thing when a friendship also has the great perks that you and I enjoy by being in the same industry and being able to bounce ideas off each other. That
yeah,
dinner, like I said, we had Jim Panzenhagen there, and that was where you were really plucking at. We've got all that together, not the dinner itself, but all of us being there through the US Seal Coaters group, which I know you're in, but you didn't really communicate all that much and do that then. Now, that's not the same story. Like, it was, since then, we were picking the group, and then we graduated from that group to different groups, and then from groups to actual outside of the Facebook realm groups.
yeah,
And there's a visible ascension of both of our companies at the same time, because I wouldn't say that we were both on the same size when we started. I would actually say Wis-Coat was a little bit in front, a tab, but I had plateaued for 5-6 years. And
yeah,
then it wasn't very long, man, and you were out in front, and I was like, oh shit. I'm like, Daniel's really making moves. Like, okay, now I'm gonna have to make some moves. And then we started asking questions of the same people, the same time, and now we're running pretty simultaneously, and we still go off of each other almost all the time. Like, if you make a move, I want to make that move. And then if something works for me, you're like, okay, how'd that work? And
yeah,
for us, I have a feeling that's how it's probably going to be all the way until we're done. And I never really say done, but I just mean where we are like cheersing at the end of this thing and being like, yeah, this was cool. So to round all that shit back up and all back together,
yeah.
what was it that made you kick out and all of a sudden come out of your shell? Because you guys have some great initiatives. We're outspoken. You guys show your work excellent, absolutely excellent. Was that it? Was that the motivator, or was it the atmosphere? What do you think it was?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, man, I want to use Proline, my company, as a tool and as a vehicle to make an impact. Um,
Was
I
it like
tell
that when you
everybody,
started though? Was it like that when
no,
you started? Right.
no, when I started, it was to make money. Flat out to make money. My wife was in nursing school. I took this on. It was the fourth job I was working. It was, I mean, it was just I made a commitment to her dad when we got engaged and got married that she would never need anything, that I would make sure she's taken care of. So part of that was putting her through nursing school with no student loan debt, no requirement for her to work outside of that. So I got into this to make money. And it was, truthfully, it was an easy way to make some decent money. Not the money we're making now as a company, and revenue with having a crew and a building and trucks
Right.
and equipment, but it was good side job money. So, but as I got further into this industry, I learned that there is just a massive need for an influence of morals, ethics, transparency, communication, things like that that we encompass as a company, to really put out into the industry. And when I say the industry, it's not just guys like yourself who's contractors, it's the clients. If we can go through and raise the standards and expectations the clients have, we all either have to raise up or we get pushed out of the way.
Yeah.
And so it's a better result for everyone involved. The vendors, you talk about Sealmaster, or if we talk about, other paint suppliers or other asphalt maintenance suppliers.
Not to cut you off, but dude, think about the way the vendors are now versus 7 years ago when you and I were first starting into social media. It's completely flip-flopped.
Yeah.
And they want to support the same initiatives that we're doing and we're part of. They're supporting that now. But if you keep going with your point, even our employees are bettering the industry by us leading that general thing. And let's keep talking about some of those initiatives and stuff that you guys have going on.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, I was thinking, kind of at the end of one year, going into the next, everybody, starts making New Year's resolutions, which I kind of think are a little bit of a joke. Everybody gets on a bandwagon for a couple of weeks and then falls off. So what I wanted to try a couple of years ago was a New Year's theme instead of a resolution. Okay. So rather than accomplishing a certain goal, we just have something that's in the background that's playing all the time. So a couple of years ago, I did it more personally, and it was just a be better theme. Anything we could think of to be better, personally, professionally, as a company, individually, whatever it is, just be better. Mm-hmm. That took traction. So then last year, 2000, I don't know what year it is, 2021, our initiative that we did was bigger than yourself.
Yeah. And you preach that a lot, dude, even to me, and it had an impact on us here.
I've been impacted by some people I look up to in my life, and I've gotten the advice for years, but it never actually clicked until last year. Mm-hmm. That was pretty much, if I want to keep working for me and my own, I'll be able to survive. But that's not the same thing as thriving. That's not the same thing as succeeding. That's not the same thing as living with purpose.
Right.
So that bigger than yourself theme was, all right, we're going to focus on whatever we need to that's just bigger than us. Yeah. Again, individually and professionally. So because my goal here at Proline is anybody that we interact with, whether it's a team member here, a vendor, a client, another contractor, whenever they leave their experience with me and my company, they leave a better person because of it. Yeah. So it is a bigger than yourself theme that we did last year. And then this year we're into our give more theme. So,
well, we'll talk about that here in a little bit here coming up. But one thing I noticed, right, is that when we did that, and last year you really preached it to me when you were like, dude, it's got to be bigger than ourselves. Because I don't know that I felt complacent or that I had plateaued or whatever, but I never really figured on why I needed to focus on expanding, growing, and capturing my full potential, right? And then when you were said, hey man, it's bigger than yourself, you got to think of something bigger than yourself. That's what we did. And that's really what the podcast is about and why it exists at its core to begin with, is that I knew that we were having conversations like we had that night of that dinner, and that some of that stuff, if somebody passed away or no one ever said it ever again, that was going to be lost forever. There was nowhere to go search it, find it, hear those people talk about it ever again. So the podcast, that's why it kept going and have some great potential. But then you and I were in Miami, and that's really when I heard you say it for the first time, right? I don't know if we were both you were reading a book, I was reading a book, or if that's what we gathered out of that thing. But I remember you saying it a lot. And then you recommended a couple books for me. Those books, I told you, literally changed the course of how the rest of my life is going to go. And I know that for a fact. But one thing it did is it made me prioritize the things that I was doing a different way. Yep. Shortly after that, there wasn't a podcast episode for 8 or 10 months, but from the outside looking in at Wis-Coat, the visible change inside here was unbelievable, right? So we hit things that were goals for us monetarily and production wise, huge. We took on buildings, took on more equipment, took on larger projects, set higher goals for ourselves, even more. And now we have a base that I believe we can build on, and a team assembled that I believe we can build on in order to ascend to a level that we're able to do things larger than ourselves and give it the attention it deserves. Hence why the podcast has came back stronger than ever, larger guests, more dedicated. It feels so much easier, so much more natural. Everything goes a lot easier because both things are larger than ourselves now, right? Wis-Coat provides for these people that are here, not only monetarily, but it's a great place for home. It's for a second home for our town, for our village where we are. And also when you come here, you just feel better because the atmosphere and the things that are said here are things to uplift and bring people up. And that single thing that we walked away with of, dude, it's got to be bigger than ourselves, I think changed the course of your guys' path for the last 2 years as well. And you keep getting new initiatives, and then ours here as well as it's going on from there. Dude, if anybody wants to know those books, message me and I'll send them to you. But they're rereads. I reread them all the time. I know that they've impacted other people's lives, but it allowed us to refocus on what we love here, which is mission impact, a mission in Guatemala, to help out people there with a lot of different things and a lot of different needs. We sponsor kids with schools down there. That's on our walls now here. Like, I want our employees to know that what they're doing is helping these people in need as well. And you see a different mentality. You see a different response, right, than what you've seen in people when you have these kind of initiatives and things. So that was the only one I mimicked. And now, like, there's shit that is on the floor here that I want these guys to remember every day too, because that's what keeps our shit going and keeps us on this trajectory. So let's
what are those things that are on the floor?
The first one we walk in is be positive here. That's the very first thing. That to me, I think that you can't do anything unless you do that, right? And then you just can't. If you don't start with positivity, you can't do the rest. The second one is we have goals here. So not only do we have goals and we share them Wis-Coat wise and Blacktop Banter wise, but I want people to have personal goals too, because then we're working towards something. Everybody's working towards something, right? The third one is don't half-ass it here. Dude, if somebody's half-assing it, that means someone's going to have to full and half-ass over what they've been doing, right? To create pick up the slack. We don't do that here. If you want to do that here, this is not your spot, man. We all give 100%. And when they give 100%, that allows us to go from half throttle to full throttle. And that's what we want to do. We're not like you, Daniel. We don't get to work all year, man. We got to crunch it in, right? In a short amount of time. Yeah. And the last one is you get what you give. And I not only ascertain that to business, but in life as well. Relationships, friendships. I've seen relationships like yours and mine prosper really, really well because we both give and get what we want, the same amount and beyond. And you just naturally feel like you should be giving more when you're getting more from somebody else. At least you should. That is the mark of I would say, a genuine human being that wants more out of their life in general. So those are the 4 things on our floor here. So it's been a full encompassing thing. And we were not that way until you and I went to, now granted, shit, dude, it was in Miami. The weather was nice. We were on the beach. We did have a great time there. Met some great people, still have relationships with some of those people. But it's not like that's what we came away with. I believe you and I came away with a lot more than that. That's going to help us for a lot of years to come. And now has went into our business. You guys are starting to have a presence in the industry now. It's always scary, dude, when you put out those kinds of things because they come from a spot where it's personal, right? The Give More initiative, all those kinds of things that you guys have going. But when you see a positive response and people taking to it and supporting it and liking it, then all of a sudden that shit gets a lot easier. So we went from Daniel here with a little bit of light shining through to Daniel starting to be like this and it's showing through. Let's talk about some of let's talk about Give More right now, because that's your initiative now that we totally support in any way that we can here as well. Let's talk about that real quick, and then we'll talk about some work shit.
Yeah. Yeah. So this year, our theme, kind of like I was talking about earlier, our theme for the year is Give More. As you can see on my board behind me here. And really what it is, a lot of people talk about businesses, the first 5-ish years is kind of you're either going to sink or swim, going into, like I said, this 6th year, we have a pretty solid foundation. Never in this world is business bulletproof, but we're going in a good direction. I've always been one that enjoys giving, even like such simple things such as birthdays or Christmas gifts, things like that. It's just fun. I know it sounds kind of like the old soul in me coming out, that I'd rather sit and watch the kids open presents than get presents.
And get something, sure.
But this year's theme kind of piggybacks off last year, and it's bigger than us. And I really wanted to, in the videos, if you've seen them posted this year, it's due to the generosity of the greater Charlotte area. So the generosity, yeah, it's business, right? They could pick anybody to choose from, but they have been generous enough to give us the chance to work with them on a project. Yep. So we try to find initiatives. Some of them have been local, some have been national, some have been international, but just something that is geared around giving back and giving more, because we've been blessed at our company to have been taken care of and continue to be taken care of. But I wanted to put something out there in public that says we're going to be committed to this. I can talk about it to myself all I want, but once I put that out in social media land and all over the internet, then we got to do it.
Oh yeah. You can't just throw it out there and not commit to it after that.
So, but what we wanted to do is not because any company can just go start writing checks for donations.
Oh, sure.
We want to get other people involved. And that's why we do the whole, we start the initiative for the month with our donation. Then we set the goal for others to get involved and donate. And then we match that up to a certain amount. Because we don't want it to, because if your giving starts getting complacent and just checking off a box each month, you're not doing it with purpose.
Right.
So we want to find a new one every month that means something to people. We're always open for recommendations. So if people have initiatives, whether it's something personal, something, with your faith, with your community, whatever it is, we're open to it. But we just want something that means something to somebody, and allow them to enjoy it.
Yeah. And I think that when you do those kinds of things, it's all benefits. Like literally, the only thing people could say, I guess, is that you're giving away or you're donating your money. And it's like, if that's the only negative that you can think, and it's really not a negative, right? Because positive things are all coming from it. Chances are, dude, you're just greedy, and you don't want, and you just have some characteristics in yourself that you need to work on. Honestly, I don't think we would want that in any of our initiatives as well, to begin with. So when you think about some of these things, it gives back to your community. It also sheds light on them. It sheds light on your business. And then if you're doing it with multiple people and different things, they share it as well. There are obviously the benefits of the actual initiative itself that help people, and that we should help people. Like you said, we're getting taken care of here as well at Lone Rock. We try to give back all we can when we can, and not only in Lone Rock, but the River Valley, Driftless area around here as well. Because, dude, it's like you said, there's tons of people they could choose from, right, to do the work. We try to not make it that way. Like, we want to be the obvious choice. We are nice and generous, but we're also businessmen too. And we don't want to sell ourselves short by just saying, hey, because we're generous, choose with us. We try to make sure that we highlight what we do exceptionally well and try not to do anything not well. And I'll give you an example of that real quick, right? We did our first seal coat job today. So we can pepper this in with work a little bit too, Daniel. It's okay. It doesn't all have to be value, I promise. So here's a story, right? So today we were on a project, and I usually try to go right away on the first ones because you always forget shit. right? For the very first, you wouldn't know this. You guys work all the time. When you put the rigs back together, you always forget shit. And today we forgot a couple things that it was stuff that we could live without and we would have been fine. But I ran and got some stakes for the end of the driveways because we forgot to put any on the trucks this year. So I ran to get some of those. And when I ran away to go get those, the owner of the property came out, talked to Cheeks and Cameron, gave Cameron the check for the project. We got paid before we're done. Talk about having some good work, right?
Yeah.
So we got paid before we were done, and we even put a sealer down. I came back and I was like, I seen their car was gone. I was like, oh, did he come out? Yeah. And Cheeks was like, yeah. And the guy was like, whatever you guys do, please don't spray my garage door. And Cheeks was like, mister, you're literally describing my worst nightmare. He's like, so don't worry about it. The reason you hired us is because of our quality. We're going to stick to that. We promise. And that's the crux of it, is that it literally encompasses who we are and what we do. And there's sometimes where that don't always sit well with people. And I have a feeling that's because they're dealing with some of their own shit too at the same time.
Yep.
But in general, when you do good things come of it. No matter what, you get what you give.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I completely agree with you.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Yeah, but it's just, when you build that relationship, Cheeks was able to kind of connect with that client and just relate to that concern.
Yeah.
And when you do that, when you can build those connections, that's when you're able to make a difference. You keep a client for life. And when you start building that trust, that's when word of mouth spreads. And that's the way to do it.
Yeah.
Taking the time to speak with them and make them feel, important, because they are.
Oh,
End of the
yeah.
day, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them.
No. And then I think that translates, right? Because you not only do you relate and follow through on what you said, but when you do that with your initiatives, that you are carrying over for the year, and you follow through on what you said and you relate as well, there's that same kind of relationship and comfort level that gets just molded in there, right? It gets weaved in there, and you see that same thing when it comes to it. So let's talk about what even makes Proline money at this point, because you and I realized, hey man, we could make some money and have some great money. And then all of a sudden we realized, if we keep keeping all this money, we're not going to grow our businesses, and we're not going to reinvest and put everything together. It's going to be a great short run for a while. But we reinvested into that, and you haven't reinvested in your team. You guys reinvested into some equipment and things out of the gate. So tell us about how it went from the trailer that I always remember the picture of, right? You had an enclosed trailer with your stripers in it. Tell us about the growth since then, 6 years in, because, I'd only been doing it for about 12 years until you rolled along. And it took about year 13. Daniel Wright passed me, and I was like, oh shit, I'm going to have to stay with the tide here. And you guys have done some great things, got great members as well on your team, and doing great projects, and got some pretty badass equipment too that some of my team would like to see in use at some point. So let's talk about that, the growth and where you guys are now.
Yeah. No, like I said, I got into it in 2016, striped all year in 2017. That was the only thing we offered. I think I bought one more striper in 2017. Then 2018 was when I got into seal coating. There was a guy here who was kind of on his way out of the industry. Kind of took me under his wing a little bit and was starting to teach me about seal coating. And he said, you need to get you a seal coat rig. I said, why? No one ever calls for it. Why do I need one of those? He said, if you get one, they will call. I'm like, what is this? The Field of Dreams or something?
Yeah.
Build it, they will come. So that year, that was the end of 2017 to 2018. I ordered a Seal Wright 700-gallon trailer, and got it delivered to my house in my driveway. I didn't know how to turn the thing on. I didn't know anything about it. And I tell you what, man, sure enough, we killed it the first year that we started seal coating. So we did that. And like I said, 2018, 2019, we kind of rolled the same way, acquiring some more stripers, more miscellaneous equipment. And then in 2020, we picked up a ditch runner ride-on machine,
Yep.
and that has been a game changer. I mean, we love our machine. I'd buy another one tomorrow if we needed one. I'd go
The
right
ditch
back.
runner or the seal right?
The ditch runner.
Okay.
It's a more expensive setup to get everything going, but it's much more versatile, much more labor and just like and just time saving.
Yeah.
So it's easier on the guys. They like it more. It's less liability when you're not toting around, a 20-foot pickup truck with a 16-foot trailer behind it.
Yep.
And instead, you've just got a 12 to 15-foot machine driving around your parking lot.
Yeah.
But that's been a game changer for us. I know we've talked a lot of, actually the majority, about 99% of our work is all commercial.
Mhm.
So having the capability to put a large output with minimal input, being labor,
Mhm.
because we all know it's hard to find that these days.
Mhm.
So it's something that's a happy medium. And it's grown. We've got 2 enclosed trailers now. Kind of one's a backup striping trailer. We've got the small dump truck. I don't know how many stripers we have now. I think it's 7 or 8.
It's a lot. I've seen some pictures. The dudes at SMI sent me some pictures of you guys the other day, and the dude's like, dude, they just keep coming out of these trailers. Like the stripers just keep coming out of the trailers. You and I have talked about this concept quite a bit, and not any of that, but how guys always ask us how many people we have, right?
Yep.
How many rigs you have, and how many jobs you do a year, and everything else. That was the measure, right? And to guys that are inexperienced, that's the measure. And then guys that were before our time, that was also the measure, I have a feeling. You and I share the same ideology that if we can do the exact same with a lot less, why the F wouldn't we? Right?
Yeah.
Because what that means is that we would be able to do a lot more if we had the same that they have, right? So I would say that you and I have created very lean machines, or at least we try to. We want to run on as little as possible and create the max output as possible. And when you talk about your ditch runner, that's what it does, right? And so we don't have 8 seal rights. We don't do that here. We have 2 so that we can go different ways, be sharp, be quick, be fast. Same thing with the stripers. We're up to 3 now. I can't ever imagine us ever needing more than that. I don't want to try to compete with Proline rolling out of a trailer on SMI or whoever would be up here in that category. But we've always been a fan of that, you and I believe that actually you and I have talked about how that has built us almost recession proof businesses. Some of these proofs where we're able to keep certain amounts set aside so that if shit does happen, we're going to go through some turbulence for a while. We'll come out the other side just fine. We don't have giant overhead of 8 seal rights, 3 dump trucks, 10 trucks, 30 guys. Like we don't have that, but I can promise you Proline can match some of that output pretty damn close if you give them a chance on a big parking lot. So let's talk about that concept a little bit. And not that I've almost already hit every single point of it and positive of it, but let's talk about that ideology a little bit from your angle.
Yeah. So I just pulled something up here. I was reading a book recently.
Of course.
And I want to just read this excerpt real quick, and it kind of lines up with what you're saying. It's a military-based book, so it talks a lot about special forces, special ops.
What base?
I'm sorry.
What base? Like
it's not a specific base.
Oh, I thought you said it's a military-based book.
No, military-based.
I know.
No, it's the background is military.
I got you. Go
ahead.
It
says special operations forces almost always have fewer operators than their authorized allowances, yet the small teams continue to outperform the larger organizations. Why? Because the special operations forces community refuses to compromise on standards to increase their numbers. It is just not an option. So I read that recently at the recommendation of JJ, our operations manager, who has a military background. he told me he listened to the book, recommended I did. So I'm like, cool.
Mm.
What that is, Marvin, is that ever since I was sitting at that table in Cleveland, that I am detail oriented.
Very.
And when we are able to build our team around the details and then execute our projects around the details, we are then much more efficient than another organization that maybe just throws equipment and people at a problem.
Yep.
We've done this 2 years ago. We teamed up with another company around here to help them get a project done in some crunch time. They had 6 guys and double the machines that we had doing some cleaning and crack sealing on a project. We had half the amount of people and half the amount of machines, and probably a quarter of the worth of the machines that they had out there, and we doubled their output.
Yeah.
But it's just when you have the detail on establishing a process for execution, you can be so much more efficient than just sending a cavalry out and hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, if there was a wildfire and you just started at every edge and just started spraying your way in,
Yep.
or you take care of the hot spots first, get
Yep.
that shit out of the way, then you fizzle shit out a lot faster. I think that that's the crux of it. And JJ obviously recommend that book. Not only does he have a military background, he's got a badass haircut too. Like that's the key. Especially this day and age when gas costs are skyrocketed, our material costs are skyrocketing, not skyrocketing, but they're elevated. We'll say that at least. You can't hardly find paint for shit at some of these places, some areas of the country. So the only thing that you can really improve on is making sure that you're not overspending on shit that you shouldn't, so that more money is in the bank or the pocketbook or whatever it is. And then making sure that when you're out there, you're acting accordingly and efficiently so that you're not overspending there as well. And then what that leaves is space for, like we were talking, turbulence, being able to ride that turbulence and ride out some of those. I don't want to say recession proof. I hate that term, but you and I said we want to be the last men standing. If that's what it's going to take, I want to be the last one to go down. If everybody's going to go down, I want to be the last one to go down. And I think that running our businesses that way has been essential and allowed us to grow a lot faster the way we want to, in the direction we want. Like I said, we don't always want to grow with this many units, cover this big area or do whatever, but in the ways that we want to. And sometimes that's top line revenue. Sometimes that's your culture growing the way that you want it to grow. Efficiency. It's a lot easier to control your culture when you don't have 200 guys to control, or 100 guys, or 80 guys to control. You can control your culture a lot easier when there's 10 of you or less. It's like, hey man, let's all sit here for a minute and talk about this. You can't really do that, dude, when your equipment is over here and then there's guys over here and there's guys over here and guys over there. It literally becomes what you talked about just now, where we're just going to throw more guys at it. Make the call, throw more guys, throw more material, throw more time at it, which it means throwing more money at it. So to bring that to a circle, I now kind of talk about where we want to go from here as our ascension keeps growing. When we talk about Proline and what you see for the ascension, what areas is it and what does that look like? It's a tough one. That's a tough one.
I mean, and that's the thing, is it's really not a specific hard set at this point, because we're so far from there. I know the concept behind, if you don't have specific goals, you'll never achieve them, right? But we're still in such an infancy in our growth that it's really just, we want to continue growing to be the go-to pavement maintenance company in our greater area.
And not sacrificing.
Because of quality, because of customer experience, because of the relationships we build, because of the transparency that we offer. Things like that is why we want to be the best. If we get told that we're the cheapest on a project, I kind of get offended. Because I want to make sure that we're not offering a dollar menu service
Right.
And we want to be a reservations only establishment.
Yeah, for
So
sure. Yeah, especially
that
when,
doesn't really answer your question directly, but that's kind of the best I got for you.
no, it kind of does, because that's a long-term play too, dude. It's the same thing as branding, right? Like
Yeah.
I always get people that ask me like, they'll be like, I did a Facebook ads campaign just like you said, and then nothing happened. And I was like, all right, dude, like how long did you run ads for? And they're like, a week. And I'm like, dude, like you seriously think that you're going to be branded in a week? You're going to outbrand me in a week? No fucking way. And
Yeah.
you think you're going to outbrand Proline in a week? I highly doubt it. Right. So it's the play is, this is something that just has to be who you are and established over a long period of time. Those diamonds weren't made because somebody just wanted to make a diamond right now. They
Yeah.
were made over a lot of pressure, over a lot of time, in the same exact way, right? Over and over and over and over. So, when you talk about at that point, hey, there's no real finish line or where we want to go. I think that you're not giving yourself enough credit for that, because it's a long-term play and you're in it right now, right? With your culture and what you guys are doing, your initiatives, getting out into the world a little bit more with your branding, stepping outside into cross industries and kind of cross areas in the Charlotte area, like you were talking about with Give More. It's the greater Charlotte area. You're working with other people and these other people as well, which in general starts to grow that network. And we
Yep.
we all know that your network equals your net worth, right? Yeah. So when we talk about that, what I've always determined is that capital or money, whatever we bring in, is just another tool to help us keep doing what we're doing at a larger scale. And we want to make a large impact. You and I both do, and we always want to make a larger impact today than we did yesterday. So those routes and what we're doing right now, I would say that we're in that same boat as you when it comes to that. Now, don't get me wrong. I have an idea for the personnel here and how I want them to be set up so that this little thing behind me becomes something legendary. And we're on our way there. The plan is there. We're putting it in motion. We're getting things going. But as you can see, I'm willing to sacrifice a year or almost a year of this thing here to make sure that we don't lose what has got us to this point and what's important going forward.
Yeah.
You guys do that same exact thing. And to your credit, your team embodies that a lot as well. So
Yeah.
I've been fortunate enough to meet almost your whole team. I haven't met Ezra yet. I'd like to get down there at some point and meet him. But it's literally Daniel Wright that I know, almost in a few different bodies with different variations as well along there as well. Tell us what's been the secret sauce to that, man, to the culture and you guys all jumping on board, because your whole team, every time there's something going on, they're all in.
Yeah.
It feels like. What's been the secret sauce to that?
I would say the thing that really made the game changer is establishing and enforcing core values in our company. That is what we live by. We eat, sleep, breathe them, and if you don't abide by them, you will be held accountable. And not saying that it's just an axe is going to get dropped on you if you break a core value.
Right.
We're all human.
Right.
But having those as guiding principles for how we operate, not just at work, but as human beings in society, has just raised everybody up. It's just been a game changer, and they know that that's our level of operation.
Yeah.
And if you meet it, then that's your expectation. When JJ and I talk and have our meetings, is we aim for perfection. Like, we want to be perfect, but our standard is excellence.
Sure.
So we have a standard that is much superior than most.
Yep.
But we want more.
Yeah, we're shooting for perfection. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So, and that's the thing, is you set the standard and you hold to it. You hold that line with yourself, and it includes me. Yeah. And I've been held accountable on my own core values that I implemented.
Yeah. You get checked.
Yeah, but I should. I
No.
should. That's also how,
Yeah.
JJ talks a lot about leadership capital, and that's how it goes back and forth.
Yeah.
When I hold these guys accountable to build them up, they're
Yeah.
going to be right there to hold me accountable to make sure I'm leading the way how they need led.
Yeah. And you'll check me from time to time because we'll have a conversation and be like, man, why are you waiting? Right. Or you're like, that's not how you were talking about before.
Yep.
And one thing that you do subliminally to me, and I don't know that we've ever talked about this, right? But we will come out of things once in a while and you'll ask, or I'll say something and you'll be like, why do you say that? Right. And you're like, how do you mean? And I'll be like,
Yeah.
well, this is my perspective on it. And I'll say whatever it is. And you'll be like, okay, I get it. And then I'll understand yours. And it's always um detail oriented, efficient, and intellectual. And then I'll get checked and be like, dude, you got to remember we're running a machine here. So you got to
Yep.
take Daniel's perspective into this as well. And I love to find the blend, right? Because if
Yeah.
I could, dude, I would literally meditate all day, give everything I have to everybody, and just be done. But I can't. We don't live in that society, right? And I think finding the blend is perfect. And I think you and I find that blend pretty well. Now, when we talk about the core values and all those things, which I was fortunate enough for you to give me one of your core value cards once, and we really didn't put those into play until this year when my team started to grow. And I wanted to make sure that as it grew, we didn't lose some of the stuff that I preach verbally all the time. Now, a lot of those things are painted on the effing floor when you walk in here at Wis-Coat, so no one's going to forget those shits. But same thing, where you're like, hey, you get checked, right, by your own team on your own core values. Here, and we had orientation Saturday, I really had to drive the point home of, hey, man, everybody has their role, right? It's not this person is the boss, so they don't do this. This person is the boss, so they don't do that, or whatever. We all have our role. We all need to pick up slack in certain areas and check the other people in certain areas. Trust me, man. So today on that project, Cheeks and I had the street brooms and Cameron had the blower, right? And we got halfway down and Cheeks is like, how does this work? Right? Like, shit, man. And we both were like, all right, let's give Cameron some props here and let him just do his thing and we'll go ahead and be servants. Right. And that's what we did here today. When you have that kind of mentality, it creates that team mentality, right? And it allows people to not half-ass it because they feel like, well, my boss isn't half-assing it for me. I better not be half-assing it for him and my team as well. Do you guys see that play as well with you guys? Because I know, you're super busy running bids and doing all those things, but I also see JJ out sweating his ass off too, doing the same thing, right? And the whole team there as well. And then you see Amanda. I seen a video the other day. She was like, well, she does the estimating too on some of the aerial projects and stuff. And I'm like, dude, everybody is friggin' pulling weight around here. Like everybody.
We're all in, man. We've all pushed all of our chips in on what we're doing here. Anytime that we bring somebody on right now, I tell them, I was like, if you're looking to come here and be rich overnight, it's not going to happen. If you want to come here and ride off in the sunset with us one day down the road and you can see the vision, we got a spot for you.
Yeah.
We are a company that is thriving off the vision of where we're going. And that, at the end of the day, it's hope that we are, I guess, as a company embracing and also kind of selling to each other that, hey, like, we not saying hope is that nothing has happened, because I mean, we went through the progression of our company over the last 6 years a few minutes ago, but it's the hope of, holy shit, look what we've done in this time.
Yeah.
Imagine what will happen if we're together that whole time.
Yeah, I know.
We've only been together as the company we are now for right around a year, a little less than. So if we take this and put what we have now into another year, 2 years, 5 years, oh my gosh, the possibilities are endless.
I know.
So, but that's where it's like, you stick to those details, you stick to the important things that matter. And it's not, like you said, we're businessmen, we want to make money, right? But if we don't steward the money well, if we don't have a culture that matters, if we don't have, core values that we honor,
Mhm.
that money don't mean shit.
No, no, dude.
So
It's
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 just,
it's a
it's a
purpose.
goal bigger than that.
Yeah, yeah. It's a purpose. Like, dude, I know for a fact guys could leave here, go work at a factory next town over and make more money. I know
Yeah.
that. And have benefits, right? And do whatever. There's a trade-off, right? There's a trade-off because how fulfilled and purposeful does that life feel? How does your work,
Yeah.
which you spend most of your time doing, right? Because if you spend equal amounts of time sleeping, I guarantee you ain't spending the other 8 hours out of those 24 all the time with the people that you love, right? If
Yep.
you are, congratulations. So you're spending most of your time probably working.
Yeah.
Um, how terrible to spend a third of your life on something unpurposeful and unfulfilling,
Exactly.
right? And I get it that you're making a paycheck to make the other 8 hours of your day for those people very, very well. I get that. That's noble. There's nothing wrong with that. I completely understand that. But one of my biggest fears, and you and I have talked about this, is me looking at myself at 60 and saying, why the hell did you waste all that time? And what did you accomplish?
Yep.
I'm scared of that more than anything. I'm more scared of that than being broke again. I'm more scared of that than dying, and I just don't want to be at that point. So when you give people a spot where they can do that, right?
Yep.
There's something magical about that shit. I don't care who says what. If you, for somebody to have a spot and realize that they're going to get what they give,
Yep.
right? Dude, that's priceless, right? It's priceless nowadays. It has to be. So let's talk about, all right, there's tons of shit you and I have learned, dude, like through this time, like piles of it. And we're growing long. And I know it's Kelsey's, is this the day four of her birthday or Dave? Yeah, it's day four, right? Of her
Yeah.
30th. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So happy late birthday, Kelsey, because we're gonna be way beyond your birthday when this airs. But dude, we've learned so much, you and I,
Yep.
and you retain a lot more than I do. All right, so we were talking about how it takes me about 4 times, right, for me to actually get what the point of what I'm either listening to, reading, or studying to take effect. It takes Daniel about 0.4 times, I think to get it and understand it. I want you to tell the story real quick. It's one of my favorite stories, and then we'll get close to rounding up. Because I was never, how do I want to put this? I never really looked to other people until I started the US Seal Coaters group, and never looked to them for like advice or looked up to them for mentorship, or there were people that was inspirational or motivational or anything like that. And I still don't look for people for like motivation. Like I don't get online and be like, okay, I need to get motivated. I'm gonna listen to so and so. Now, there are people just like in real life who you like to be around, right? Because they have great ideals, um they're uplifting, they're great to be around. And I do draw from people. I really like listening to Mike Tyson, right?
Mhm.
And I like listening to Gary Vee. I do like listening to Joe Rogan from time to time. We both really enjoy, at least I do, listening to Ed Milet. I think a lot of his one-liners and his bits are very profound, right? And then I'll listen to Sadhguru, who's, I post a lot of his stuff as well. So it doesn't matter where they're from or what they do or whatever. Those ideals are all the same. They're great for me. But to round that back, there was a really a moment that you got to meet guys at First Form that
Yeah.
really like you still relate back to that sometimes with me. And it, like, you've told me the story, and then shit will happen and you'll be like, well, when I told you that story about this happened as well. So
Yeah.
it even draws some stuff up real lightly. Go over what happened at First Form, when you're there, and why were you even there? Like, first we'll start with that.
Yeah. So I'll there's gonna be a couple of shameless plugs in this story here. So that's
Hey,
how it's gonna have to go.
that's fine on Blacktop Banter, believe me.
All right. Well, that's how it's gonna have to go. So I So 2018, the year I left the fire department to do Proline full time, we have been following Ed Milet and Andy Frisella with, he's the CEO of Firstborn.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been following them in their podcast for quite a while. They started a group called the Arte Syndicate, and well, they had two different levels of it, but they were doing an Arte live event up in St. Louis. And my buddy and I, we were like, man, let's just go. Let's
But why were you following them? Why did you even jump on and start following and listening?
The content about life, about business, whatever it was. I think actually somebody on one of the US Seal Coater pages or something mentioned an Andy Frisella guy. I'm like, well, who that? And the MF CEO project.
That's right.
I don't know what this is, but this sounds intense. Yeah. So do what?
Yeah. I remember that. Post.
So I checked it out. I started listening to it. I was like, man, this guy's yelling at me a lot, but I like what he says. So showed it to my buddy. We started listening to it. Then Ed Milet came along, so on and so forth. So we went up to St. Louis to this event, and neither of us barely had a pot to piss in at this point. To be honest with you, my buddy, and that's a whole other topic we can get into with him one day. He's a really good guy, doing very good now. But the night before the conference that we were there, he actually looked at me. He's like, Daniel, he's like, why am I even doing this? Like, why am I here? Like, this isn't for me, you know. Yep. Just a lot of self-doubt, but he's killing it now. Anyways, so we had some time to kill before the conference, and First Form's headquarters are in St. Louis. So we're like, we kind of got in touch with one of their sales reps, asked the guy, hey man, like, is there any way we can come see your headquarters when we're in town for this event? He said, yeah, no problem. Come ask for me when we're there. So we got there, he showed us all around, and right as we were wrapping up the tour, Andy comes walking out of some office. And I was like, hey man, like that's Andy, right? He goes, yeah. He goes, he does work here. I'm like, well, I knew that, but like, you hear this guy on the podcast and on the videos and stuff, you don't think about it. So we got to talking to it. He was in the customer service area right before we left. And I said, hey man, it's going to sound really fanboyish, but is there any way you think we can get like a picture with him? And he said, well, let me go ask. So right when he walks over, Andy sits down with an employee to talk about something. So this guy who was showing us around, he's like, well, hang on a second. Let's see how long this conversation is. Ask him. He comes over, takes a picture. Well, you know me, I like asking questions. Yeah. So I asked him, I said, Andy, I said, hey man, I said, real quick, I said, when you're trying to promote a culture for a company that doesn't yet exist as far as the people for the company, how do you convey this culture and this vision when it's just a vision? Right. And to be honest, he called me kind of stupid in nicer words. And more or less, he said, I have no idea what you're trying to ask me right now, but I got somebody who might. So he takes me over to his brother Sal's office, who's the president of the company. Yeah. They were in the middle of a leadership meeting for First Form. He told them all to stop, told two guys to get off the couch. I'll tell you verbatim, told my buddy and I, he said, you're about to have a conversation people would pay a lot of money for, so you better fucking enjoy it. And I said, you got it. Yeah. Well, needless to say, that couch sat empty the whole time we were in there because we were not about to be the ones sitting down having this conversation. But it really just, the guys that at First Form, and Andy stayed in there with us. I mean, he closed the door. We were in there for 30, 40 minutes just talking just about business development, life, things like that. And these guys really just poured into us and listened and talked and listened and talked. It was fantastic. So what it was, man, is it was an eye-opener that whatever we're going to set out to do, it's going to be a whole lot harder than what we think. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that really kind of comes back every time that I start getting drugged down or just a lot of just stress or frustration or anxiety or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm like, man, these guys sitting in a really nice building already told me it's going to be a lot harder than what I thought. Yeah. This is one of those times. Yeah, it's supposed to be. Yeah. I think it's supposed to be. If it's easy, you're complacent and you don't want bad enough. Because exactly. I was that guy, right? And it was easy just to go ahead and make Blacktop black. But it did not take very long before I had an epiphany. If that's all I did was make Blacktop black, I was going to be an empty son of a bitch. My life was going to be unpurposeful if that's what I did. And I can honestly take you to the day almost that I said it, because it was early in summer.
and we had made it through winter, which was always the goal, was, hey man, make enough money to make it through winter. Well,
Yeah.
I had enough put up to make it through 2 winters. So I'd already hit that, right? And I was going back to work making blacktop black. And I was just like, I don't want this for my life. Like
Yeah.
I don't want this for my life. I got to figure something else out. Um, it wasn't Andy, right? But it was Gary V that I all of a sudden took to.
Mhm.
Um, I had a lot of weird, I would say weird, but now I don't think it's weird. I just think it's the way the universe works with me. I can see a lot of shit before it happens now. I can tell that shit's getting put in my path because of my path and my journey, and it's meant for me and those things. But about that same time, it was about Easter. Right before we started working, I went to Missouri, not St. Louis, but I went to a church sermon for Easter, and they were talking about flowers growing and those things. And I remember the pastor saying, uh, "Bloom where you're planted."
Yep.
And I always said, dude, I have to get out of here. I got to get away from Wisconsin. I got to get away from River Valley. Like, if I'm going to make something or do something, I got to get away from here. And everything kept bringing me back here and rooting me right here. So I started to just go along with it and say, all right, bloom where you're planted. I hate doing seal coating and whatnot now at this point. Like, I hate making blacktop black, and that's my life. So I kind of turned to Gary V because I heard something one time that in this new age, you can do whatever you want and become the person of that industry, right?
Mhm.
And you'll have all kinds of connections, do all kinds of things, and it'll take you places you never thought you would go. And I was like, okay, that would totally make it worth it, right? If I did that. And that's how I got started on doing my thing and the social media and all that other stuff. But as I grew that way, I grew more towards as well, just by being in the concept of show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Yeah.
I hated the fact that in 20 years I was going to be maybe just at or above where I was, and all my friends were going to be having some great success and be able to have these conversations and look back at it. Like you say, the sunset. I don't say, looking back at the sunset and be like, oh shit, yeah, we did a good one. I always like to talk with you and everybody else about it, of us cheersing right at the end and all of us being together and being like, holy shit, what a ride that was and what we turned it into.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
the way that we get motivated and inspired is different, and everybody should, but I and it should be different, right? We're all different, everybody's personal and different. But I love that story, dude, of you with that, because you embody it, you took it and used it. And not a lot of people do that. They'll listen, like Andy will call them assholes, right? Like, there are people that ask you
Yep.
all kinds of shit and then don't do anything with it. There
Yep.
was a time where I was in, what's that?
Success zombies.
Yeah,
They're
success
all about
zombies,
trying to gain everything, but don't do anything with
but
it.
don't do anything with it.
Wandering through life.
And it's tough because I was in the green industry, fortunate enough to be in that community, had no reason being there, but they took me in and accepted me. And I think that's probably why, because they knew I didn't want anything. But I was in a mastermind group there with a few people, I think it was 8 or 10 of us. I'll try to post a picture to Instagram at some point so everybody can go back and look at it. But they're still some of my great friends. Other ones, we're not that close anymore. And some other ones left that group before I did. And when I asked why, it was like, well, because this is capped. Like, it's capped right here. Like,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people in here that aren't going to do anything beyond this, or there are people that are going to but haven't yet, and I can't be around that yet. And I left that group, came to our side, right, and started our community and everything. And then people, much like you and myself, gravitated towards each other, right? And that's what has helped me grow and expand, are those kinds of relationships. And you and I realized real quick that some of these guys that we are going to be picking the brains of um, aren't always certain people's cups of tea. But when
Yep.
you get under the surface, they're good guys and they do know a lot and they care. They may not care about the exact same things we do and the ways we do, but they do
Yep.
care. But the main thing is that they're willing to give their time, their advice, their knowledge, And I see that now quite a bit in Daniel Wright as he's just growing up right in front of my eyes. As we're getting older, and we are getting older, and that's just the crux of it. As we get older in this, have you what have you seen change from when you were at first form and got that piece of advice to yourself now, Daniel? When you look back, what do you see different about Daniel Wright 6 years ago versus Daniel Wright right now?
I would say that I see that the possibilities are endless. Not necessarily just in the pavement maintenance industry. Hell, I tell people now that I don't do pavement maintenance. I get to impact lives. And when I first got into this, I was like, man, I'm going to just be painting lines and making asphalt black again.
Yeah. Brutal.
But I tell you, man, I've been fortunate to have a team that has stood next to me. I don't want to say behind me, because a lot of times they're next to or in front of me.
Yeah.
And in helping push through this. But I get to now come to work every day and impact lives. That's what I see since that conversation at first form. I've realized that it's going to be harder than I ever thought. It's going to be scarier than I ever thought. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Absolutely, it is.
But everything is worth it. And when you go through that company first form and take a tour of that place, which, as a disclaimer, I don't know if they still do tours. I don't know if you have to schedule them, whatever it is. You just feel the energy in that place. Those people will die for that company. And Andy talks a lot about, people come through there and say, man, where do you find these people? And he said, what do you mean? They don't grow on a farm. We build them. He's like, I don't just go find them places. They come in here willing to learn, willing to be built, and we build them, which is kind of where I got the motivation and the inspiration for our, I guess you'd call it like a recruiting theme this year, is that we build people. If you aren't willing to come in here and be moldable and buildable, you probably don't have a seat on our bus. I don't care where you come from, what background you have. We all have room to grow and to learn. So yeah, those are some things that I took from it is invest in the people, build in them. It's going to be harder than you think, and it's all going to be worth it.
Yeah. And it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
There's nothing more uncomfortable than turning a camera on yourself, filming a video, and then posting it for thousands of people to see. It's brutally uncomfortable. And that's one of the biggest hurdles everybody has getting over. But you have all transitioned very well. Your team has as well. So kudos to that, because we both know that it's a necessity going forward in branding and marketing.
Absolutely.
Forever, I have a feeling. Cool. All right. So with all that, even though that was a great piece of advice, I'm going to ask you for one just general piece of advice. We get questions all the time. If you follow my story on Instagram, there's people all the time asking me all kinds of stuff. We can sit here and talk about the business aspect of it until we're blue in the face. How much to charge per square foot? How often you should clean your unit? When I say that, I mean your seal coat rig. Sorry about that. But also, how to get sealer off this, how to do maintenance on this, how to lay out your lines, all that shit. We could talk about all that, but I think we would be amiss if we did that versus some of the really good shit. And it could be from wherever, from the past, shit that's came true that other people said. I don't care what it is. There has to be an overall thought that has entered your mind where you're like, this is just it. As long as it's this and we do this, or this is the theme, or I follow this, everything else is going to fall in place. I know. I'll put you on the spot.
I know. The thing that keeps coming to my mind when you originally just asked me this is the one piece of advice I would give is be willing. Be willing to learn, be willing to fail, be willing to risk, be willing to do something bigger than yourself, be willing to give more than you thought was possible. Be willing to just show up every day. When you don't feel like it, when you don't want to do it, is when you need to do it the most. We've recently, JJ and I just had a conversation, and he asked me, he said, if you were to give one piece of advice for success at Proline, what would it be? And I said, be willing. Show up and be willing.
Yeah.
So that's pretty broad. Like I just gave a handful of different examples of being willing. But if you show up and you are willing every day, you will make it.
Yeah.
So whether it's you and I as the owners of our companies, whether it's other individuals who work in the companies, or whether it's just a stay-at-home mom. Yeah, I say just stay-at-home mom. Okay, I don't want to say that is a hard job that deserves a lot more credit.
Dude, I just said wash your unit, so you don't have to apologize for anything.
Well, I'm going to, because I get it. It's a tough job, but whatever it is that you're doing, be willing to show up and give it everything you've got.
Cool.
Because anything less is a disgrace to the life you've been blessed with.
Mm-hmm.
And giving everything you got to an expectation.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. I
always fear, Ed Milet says it, you mentioned him. His biggest fear in life, and I embody this, his biggest fear is that when he dies one day and goes to heaven, that God introduces him to the man he was designed to be, and it doesn't look anything like who he was.
Yeah.
That is his biggest fear. So if you're willing to show up every day and give it all you got, you're going to live the life that you were designed to live.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that. And the very first one you said about be willing to learn, I hope we never stop learning, Daniel. And I don't just mean business or seal coating or anything else. So if I'm stopped learning, then I'm not living this life to the potential that I should be. I'm hoping I learn from kids when I'm 60. Like I still hope that, man, because there's no better feeling than knowing that you don't have it all figured out and there's way more than you're ever going to take in this life by just being willing to learn. Right.
Yep.
Cool. When people want to find Proline, where do they find them online?
We've got
the TikTok is starting to get fired, just so you know. I do like that one as well.
Starting to get fire?
Yeah, fire. You know what fire means?
Like cool?
Yeah, that means cool nowadays.
Yeah, we don't have a lot on our TikTok. We got some we can put up there, but we don't have a lot on there. But Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
I think our Instagram is at Proline _PLM is what it is.
Yeah.
So
if I'd have been well prepared, I would have said that.
But
if I would have been well prepared, I would have had that out here written for you, but I don't. So,
that's
what
it
is.
As you can see, I don't really remember it all. I should have wrote it on the board behind me, so I would have had a hint. Yeah. Anything on social media, I mean, you search as we show up.
Yeah, so, you put Proline, that's coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the Instagram is fantastic. I'll say that. Like, not a lot of people, I think, care and put as much into it as you guys do. There are a few out there that do. I don't even think I do that as well as you guys do. But it totally looks clean. You get all the points across really well. The actual promotional part for your business as you guys mix in looks really, really well. So
that credit goes to an awesome young lady we got behind the scenes. It's not Amanda, it's someone else that does all of our social media.
I knew you were holding out, you asshole. I knew you were holding out.
Yeah, man. Gotta keep a couple secrets up the sleeve.
Cool. All right, let's do a pod deck real quick before I let you go, because I feel bad. You're an hour ahead of me, right? So it's already later than it should be, than it is here. Like, I still got some time to put some work in. While you're sleeping, guess who's still working? This guy. Yeah. But you're at it before I wake up. So hey, it is what it is.
Pretty close.
All right. There's a pod deck. We're gonna split it. I'll split it twice. And I'm just gonna draw a top one.
You gotta tell me what the pod deck is.
Nope, it was just a question, and you're gonna answer it. What would you do if you were invisible for a day? I know you're gonna be on the boat, so that really don't matter. All right. So
I literally was just thinking, like, man,
I know you're gonna be like, oh, I'd be driving my boat nude. Yeah.
I would sneak off to the boat and I would just go drop an anchor for a day. No, I think if I was invisible for a day, I I would want to follow around the people that I care about most, personally or professionally, and see their image of me.
I like
The
it.
disclaimer to that is not to care about what other people think about you, but
I already know what you're gonna say. Want me to
that,
finish it?
yeah, go for it.
Uh, to adjust the way that you live your life to make up for the things that they look at negatively.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to be viewed as somebody who, you know, it's very humbling to think about writing your own eulogy
Hmm.
and what people will say about you when you're gone.
Yeah.
And so I would want to take that opportunity of being invisible to see what people are already saying and see how I can change the course of my life.
I get it. I totally get it. Um, I think I don't think it would be far off from if you were standing right there, Daniel. So I'll give you credit for that because not a lot of people are like that, including myself. So that's what I would think, anyways. Cool, my friend. This was a good long one. I knew it was going to be because we can talk for hours, anyways. And usually we're both in a hurry, but we do get our point across real quick. We do get our thoughts across real quick. It's really nice to share it and for people to kind of get a grasp of what is possible if you are willing to let your guard down, let some people in on your life. I promise it only exponentially makes your life more fruitful than it
Yeah.
does of taking it away. Um, I hope people do that more, and I hope that by us talking and people realize our relationship that they do that more for themselves as well because it makes your life better, and you should always you deserve to have a better life than you have now all the time, I think.
Yeah.
So very cool. All right, Daniel gave you all of his information. Proline, PLM, they do all kinds of cool shit. They're always giving out to people. I'm always trying to catch them. They have the coolest social media posts. He's got the best fucking team. His physique's phenomenal now because he lifts weights all the time, and he spends time on the boat catching waves, catching sun. That's why he's got a better tan than me, even. So we're already ahead of everything. And you do have a wonderful, beautiful, caring wife. And I'm actually going to give her all the credit to why you're so excellent. And I'll wish her a happy late birthday because, it's not going to be aired when she's there. So thank you very much, my friend.
Absolutely. Appreciate you
Good.
having me on, Marvin.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. We're going to do it again sometime. I actually got to get JJ on, or he's going to probably send special ops to kill me up here in Wisconsin at some point. So I
He
will have
might.
him. I know he might, or he'll do it himself. He'll enjoy it, probably. All right. So for Daniel and myself, this is episode 66 of Blacktop Banter, and we're on our way to 100. I don't know what we're going to do when we hit 100. I got kind of an idea, a goal, but it's a big one. But we'll see what happens. All right. For Daniel, myself, episode 66, Blacktop Banter. And now we speak asphalt. We did speak asphalt, which is good. But as always, we want you to seal it, pave it, stripe it, and kill it. Peace.